The Liberals are set to face another test of their majority government later this summer. Prime Minister Mark Carney has called 3 by-elections for Monday, August 31st. Candidates will look to replace MPs who have recently resigned their seats. Former Liberal MP Jonathan Wilkinson, now Canada's ambassador to the European Union. Former Conservative MP Richard Martel, recently been appointed to the Senate. And former Liberal MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith. That leaves 3 ridings across the provinces up for grabs. 1 in BC, 1 in Ontario, 1 in Quebec. The Liberals need just 1 win of those seats to retain their majority government. The Power panel joins me now. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. Jamie Ellerton is a former Conservative staffer. And here with me in studio, Stevie O'Brien, former Chief of Staff to Liberal cabinet ministers. And Stevie, I'll start with you, because when I saw this announcement come out, I kind of had to do the electoral math in my head, which I'm never very good at. And is it 1 seat they can retain them? How confident are you they can? What's at stake here?
The math here, because it has been, it's been a very strange year between just shy of a majority,
right,
and then several floor crossers, and then people who are resigning their seats, but they haven't yet resigned their seats.
This always happens
totally
at the end of a term, not at the beginning.
It's totally fair for viewers at home to be pulling out their pen and pen
right,
to try and do the calculations. But I think that these ones have been called, and there are more that we know that will be coming.
Right.
And I think that there's the calculation behind them that they are confident they will win at least 1, and I think up to sweeping all 3 by-elections in August. There 2 were Liberal seats beforehand.
Right.
Carney has been doing well in those ridings, and the third one was in Quebec was quite a tight race. So it's very possible that with Carney on the up and Poilievre's favourables sort of on the dipping down, that it could be a Liberal sweep.
Yeah, Jamie, it'll be interesting to watch. The BC and the Ontario ones are probably more favourable for the Liberals. The Chicoutimi-Laforde one is the one I think to watch. Which one are you focused on?
Yeah, the 2 I'd actually be watching are Beaches East York here in Toronto and North Vancouver, Capilano. And the reason I'd be watching those, and in that order, would be is there any sign of Avi Lewis and the NDP having life back in them? There's been rumors here in Toronto that Mike Layton's considering running. No one's yet to formally put that one to bed, and that, of course, would be next door to where the Jack Layton ran and was a longtime MP when he was NDP leader. And I think when you look at the broader significance of these by-elections, I'm generally in the camp that by-elections don't really say a lot in terms of where the country's mood is and what it's going to be. But if the Prime Minister doesn't have a strong showing in those 2 seats that were in the Liberal fold prior to this, and there's signs of life of a resurgent NDP, that is going to cause him a lot of internal caucus dynamics going forward as progressives in the Liberal coalition are a little bit chafing and looking at some of the things Mark Carney is doing and could forebode a shift in opinion. If the Liberals do indeed pick those 2 seats back up and do so resoundingly, Avi Lewis still has time to figure out how he's going to be a leader and be relevant, but it's not going to do much to change what's going on in Parliament, and if anything, will actually embolden the Prime Minister's approach to leadership to show that he's getting the job done into his caucus and for him to get on side with what he's trying to do.
Brad, what was the NDP chat group like when these got launched?
Yeah, that's right. Well, the first question was, should Avi run in any of these? And the answer that I gave to the media outlets that called me was no, he shouldn't. He shouldn't run, because right now, being a backbench, independent, non-caucus
right,
member of Parliament in a majority government is not as important as rebuilding the party from the ridings up. So I'm glad that he has signaled that he is not going to be running. Look, let's take a look at North Van Capilano. That is a pretty safe Liberal seat. I think Wilkinson got somewhere in the 60s in the last election. While the NDP has enjoyed great support in the Lower Mainland, North Vancouver has never been one of those areas. So, to say to the new leader who's been in the position for a few months, if you can't make a breakthrough in a riding where we've maybe even in 11 during the Orange Wave, I think we came in 3rd. Beach is interesting. I mean, Carney is doing very well in the Lower Mainland right now in the public opinion polls, and he's also doing very well in Toronto. The only way that this could be an interesting riding is if somebody individually, like a Mike Layton, were to make the decision. Mike is former Toronto City Councillor, a few wards to the west. He's not from there. He's never suggested that he was. But if he did seek the nomination there, secure it, that would be interesting. But Peter, I agree with you that the most interesting one for August 30th is Chicoutimi-Le Fjord for a couple of reasons. One, that riding has elected each of the four major political parties in the last 15 years. It went NDP in 11, it went Liberal, it went Bloc, and it went Conservative in the subsequent elections over the last 15 years. So it is a bit of a toss-up. Why is it interesting? Could Carney's level of support in Quebec be an indicator where he could win a seat like Chicoutimi, which they haven't held for a few years? But also, I think it's an issue for Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre squeaked that seat out in the last federal election. It was close, but that was a riding that Poilievre pointed to. If Poilievre does not hold that seat, as much as it would be a win for Carney, it would also be an indication of a loss for Poilievre, and that would, I think, further put doubt in the minds of Conservative people of his leadership and the ability to secure new inroads in the province of Quebec.
I love how Jamie just shakes his head at that. I think the by-elections are just this, like, everybody tries to impose their narrative on everybody else, and their by-elections, they don't really tell us too much. What I want to dig into, though, is the timing. And how much should we read into this? That they're doing these three now, there's still three more that need to get done, like Stephen Guilbeault hasn't resigned yet. Why not wait and get them all going at the same time? And do they have to wait for the referendum in Alberta and the provincial election in Quebec?
So a few things on timing. One, I think Carney wants to go into the fall session with a guaranteed majority, and these were specifically chosen
the ones that get the
so
job
that
done.
he will go in and he can continue to move on his vision at the speed that he wants to, which requires a majority. So I think that's the first thing. Second, I think the Chicoutimi outcome may dictate how quickly or how delayed future Quebec by-elections may be.
Right.
If it's a resounding success, maybe we'll have the next ones relatively soon, although you do want to factor in the provincial election cycle that's going to sort of ramp up and influence timing.
And the polls are moving on that, right? Like Frechette came in weak, but is doing a little bit better, and the PQ is stabilizing at the very least. Like,
it's hard to run the provincial election in a major, in a large province and a federal by-election at the same time. You get lost. The other thing I'd say on timing that I think is interesting is August 31st is that time where people aren't back at school, people are still on vacation mode. Like, you don't get the sort of groundswell necessarily. It's not a high turnout time. So I think that will work in the Liberals' favor, at least in North Van and Beaches East York. So we'll see if there is a latent there. They better put their name up and get going soon because the clock is ticking, right? They don't have very much time and resources. The NDP, even with a star candidate, is going to be stretched to find the bodies, the volunteers, and just the general machinery that is behind every election.
Jamie, as we've established, it's not going to be record engagement in this, but there's nothing like a by-election to focus the mind. The Conservative infighting that we've seen has spilled out into the public domain. What is the scenario that this allows them to say, okay, let's put an end to this and focus on the job of actually electing MPs?
You know what, Peter? I actually don't think these three by-elections are going to have any impact on the fate of Pierre Poilievre and the state of his leadership. I think when you look at what's been going on, I think people broadly recognize that now Senator Martel really was a boost and a star local candidate and was able to help the Conservatives keep that seat in the last election. And if there was another name there, it probably would have not gone the Conservative way. And I think when you look at how Conservative politics function across this country, no one's looking at Chicoutimi to say, yeah, here's where the Conservative movement is going, and here's why.
No, but they'll be looking in Ontario and BC, won't they?
And again, you come back to these two ridings. The aspect of Beaches East York ever going Conservative seems about as likelihood as Doug Ford getting a 3-kilometer runway in Lake Ontario to expand the island airport. I just don't see it happening with the politics of how that's going to play out. And even in the North Van riding, I think this is the safer Liberal seat. When you look at some of the issues of where I think there could potentially be appealing away on the progressive side, pipeline politics were not a non-starter in BC 10 years ago. Prime Minister Carney has changed that, with national unity being at the forefront. And so I think when you look at some of the more business center BC Liberal types, former BC Liberal types, and they look at the economy as a barometer for what they want the federal government to be doing, I think a lot of those people are quite happy with what Mark Carney is doing, and the case for why they would vote Conservative to send a message is kind of not there. I think when you look at the broader impacts of where this is across the BC political spectrum right now, is there any movable opposition that's actually going to mobilize to put a dent in that Liberal number? And if the answer is no, I think it's a pretty strong win in the Prime Minister's sails.
Brad, what do you say to the cynic in me that says that this is all timed at the end of the summer when nobody's paying attention to just sort of get the job done and basically nobody's going to engage with this. Get your seats while you can and move on. It's a cynical approach. I get it. What do you say to that?
Oh, I've never known you to be cynical, Peter. Come on, that's not your style. If you wanted to be cynical, I would put forward this theory. In addition to having low voter engagement, low voter turnout, the other thing is that we can't forget that the Liberal candidate in North Vancouver Capilano is a former senior aide to Mark Carney, Braden Cayley, and I believe that BC is down a cabinet minister with Wilkinson going to serve in the EU. So is there a role for Mr. Cayley to play in the cabinet before the House comes back later in the fall? That would be cynical if I were to say that. He wants to squeeze him in quickly, grab a couple of others along the way, maybe make it a three win. I'm not predicting that, but that could be part of the calculation. Low voter turnout, I think, would help the incumbents, especially in those areas where the Liberal have traditional strength. But it could also be trying to get his former senior aide into the House and into potentially a cabinet position.
Stevie, if you listen to Jamie says the Conservatives basically have nothing at risk because they can't win the two main seats. Brad says the NDP is going to do its thing, but the pressure's off. Does that put all the pressure on the Liberals? Like the stakes are definitely higher for the Liberals than they are for anybody else in this.
They're definitely higher, and if there was, if all three were lost, I think there would be some emergency meetings happening. But I think the stakes are still relatively low. We're going to go back into the fall. Carney's approval ratings are still high. People are still generally happy with his performance. He's going to go into, if he picks up even one, he's going to go into the fall sitting with the majority and that sort of ability to execute on his vision and his mandate. So I don't think it'll stop him at all. He's not one that's sort of as focused on partisan politics or election play. They're actually, the Liberals are going into this without a national director at the party, which says...
Is that a risk?
Well, I think there could be a risk to it, or it could be a signal of their confidence in how these are going to go.